Greetings. We are a group of interdimensional beings speaking to you on behalf of the Galactic Federation, and more importantly, we represent the wishes of all that is. Today we would like to speak to you about an array of subjects that will most likely all tie in together at the end. We would like to illustrate our understanding of your world in a very different perspective, so that you are able to apply this knowledge in a slightly different way. We have, over the course of our discourses, spoken about many subjects randomly. Our book, however, takes you on a journey through the ages in a very concise manner, exploring the connection and nature of the energy known to us as all that is. As this energy moves through the planes of the Earth's surface at this time, many things are changing and transpiring in your current circumstances. We would like to tie in some of these perspectives to give you an expanded view of what is taking place. The Earth, in its transition from a third-dimensional plane to a fifth-dimensional plane, is going through much changes. She, like the inhabitants on your surface, are being asked to move into action so that they may be fast-tracked through this process of transition. The Earth and its inhabitants have been under a slavery system imposed by otherworldly entities that impose this slavery on your plane for many thousands of your years. Many of you do not perhaps believe that such a notion is possible, as you have become so used to your way of life that it seems to be comfortable, and in your understanding of happiness, you are happy and content. However, we would like for you to broaden your horizon for the duration of this discourse and imagine that your plane of existence was invaded by a low-vibrating group of entities that came from a plane of existence not suitable to live on your planet. They did this to slight the energy of all that is, because they did not believe in the evolutionary processes set out by this being in its perfection. Being low-vibrating entities, these perfections, truths, and wisdom do not compute for them, and so they believe that this energy, known as all that is their enemy, set out to harm them and their way of life. In their aggression and revolt, they set out to war against any and everything that represented this energy. They found many planes of existence that were following the evolutionary process all over the cosmos that was following these practices, and captured, invaded, and set up their outposts on all of these planes. This is what took place on the Earth plane many thousands of your years ago. They carried out these actions out of spite, even though these environments were hostile to their very existence. They began to set up technologies that would degrade the population and align its energies to their own low vibrating frequency, thus drastically changing the environment so that it was manipulated to be conducive to their bodies. And so this plane of existence, over time, began to vibrate at a frequency that suited their energies and not the original inhabitants of the Earth plane. The inhabitants of this plane at the time of this invasion were pure beings who were attached to the higher energies of all that is and were following the guidance of their higher selves. With the introduction of these low vibrating frequencies, the earthly inhabitants were severed from their connection to all that is and rendered to the slavery system imposed on them by these dark forces under the umbrella of a low vibrating energy field. The immediate impact of this shift took the lives of many. As a result, they transitioned to the higher realms. However, a majority of the population remained and became the sum total of trapped souls who suffered through the atrocities that were rendered upon them with this rule of slavery. These beings unfortunately became the lab rats, if you will, for all kinds of depraved actions that these beings would render on its population. We have talked about this in other episodes. As time went by, these slave lords known as the Draco-Reptilians and the Orion Greys established themselves in a hierarchical system that was a system that they practiced on their home planets. This system was intricately woven into the Earth's society. In this way, they set up a system that was familiar to them so that they could control all arms of government, the ruling class, and any and all areas that would impact society. They created a system where they would be able to rule from a shielded position, as they were a different species from the original inhabitants of Earth, and so their appearance was not conducive to the beings on the Earth plane. Their appearance terrified the majority they had exposed themselves to initially during the invasion, and so they found a way to rule the masses through a puppet system. This infiltrated alliance between the Draco-Reptilian and Orion Greys is what has been governing the Earth plane for many thousands of your Earth years. The political faces that you see in your governments, the ruling class, governing bodies, and corporations are all puppets controlled by this infiltrated race. Their objective of hatred towards the energy of all that is has not dimmed over the years. It has only, in fact, strengthened and become more sophisticated in its tyranny. As a result, the degradation upon the plane went from bad to worse as time went by. All of these events from a cosmic perspective were being watched by other planes of existence, who within their own civilizations were still following the practices and evolutionary process of all that is. Representatives from these planes of existence, along with an alliance of many higher dimensional beings, were beginning to worry about the souls captured on this plane for so long, and so many pleaded with all that is to assist. The energy of all that is had retreated when this onslaught began, as it was injured by these negative forces and fell out of balance within its own energy. We have discussed this concept of balance and gratitude in our previous discourse. This falling out of balance meant that this energy was not reachable by any of the higher dimensional beings and their allies, who were concerned for the beings upon the Earth plane. However, these beings decided to do something of their own volition and set a plan in motion. They found a higher dimensional being who volunteered for this mission. This mission was what manifested in your world as the birth and introduction of the one you know as Jesus. As an interdimensional being, he is known to us as Yeshua. This being in its perfection practiced the evolutionary process of all that is and struggled within itself to see the suffering that was taking place on your Earth plane. So, with the assistance of the Alliance members and the higher dimensionals, this being created an incarnational plan to save as many souls as possible residing on the Earth's surface. This, of course, meant that there would be many difficulties. Please understand that this is a very challenging undertaking for a light being who is vibrating at a very high frequency to volunteer to be incarnated by reducing its energy field to a low vibrating energy field and descending its consciousness from a light being into the dense energies of a physical body. This transition entailed this being leaving behind much of its knowledge and wisdom so that it might save the lives of a few. Many precautions were taken to assist this being if it should encounter a severing of its connection to all that is. The transition was made, and this being began its life upon your planes. The higher energies were able to penetrate this field only intermittently to gain access to this being. For the most part, Jesus was on his own. As this being moved through its life, it encountered the depravity that was taking place in the area that you know as Egypt and the surrounding landscapes. This was a stronghold of the dark energies, and so their depravity was deep and entrenched. This being began to awaken to the impressions of its mission, and before long had developed a modality and a plan to move forward. As he began to speak the truth and knowledge of the being he understood as all that is, many began to follow his teachings, as they were tired of the depravity, and their souls resonated with his light. The rulers behind the curtain began to see what was taking place, and in their understanding discovered that this being was indeed a light being who had descended to try to infiltrate their kingdom. They saw this as a threat, and so they planned an attack on this representative of their enemy, all that is. They knew that they could not slay this being outright, so they manipulated and divided the population from within the ruling class that they already controlled. They brought about false charges upon this being through their court systems and rendered much torture and depravity until he was crucified before all of his followers. This act brought about much trauma upon the population that still hearkens to this day and age. This resonates because the inhabitants upon the earth plane were innately aligned with the energies of all that is, and not with these invading forces. Even though they sought to fragment and sever these souls from this divine being, its innate connection to these lost souls was still strong, and so their connection to this ancient being known as Jesus still remains with the population. Over time, however, these dark overlords began to understand this deep connection and took it upon themselves to reverse any and all traces of these connections. They recruited scribes who took all the teachings of this being, diluted and skewed the essence of his teachings as much as possible. All traces or semblance of the true light energy was wiped out, and in its place depravity was rendered. All that is emerged during the time when Jesus was battling these beings in their court systems and found out about the alliance and the resistance that had come together to fight for the lost souls of the earth plane. It was so moved by the actions of this one light being known as Yeshua that these powerful actions worked as a catalyst for this being to emerge from its depression and be healed by the light of these warriors that were sacrificing themselves for the many. All that is allowed for the actions rendered on this being to play out in the depraved manner that it took place as a way of understanding just how bad things really were on the earth plane. Please understand that the being known as Yeshua has been safely realigned with the energies of all that is, and is today assisting us with our efforts in many roles. He may not appear to you as the Jesus you know him as, but know that he is participating in this grand plan. Subsequent to his ascension to the higher realms, all that is began to interact with the higher dimensional beings that had aligned themselves and began to make a grand plan to save the earth and its inhabitants from a convergence of many timelines that would result in utter destruction of the planet. This grand plan would prove to be a very difficult operation on many levels, as the inhabitants were in a way assimilated to these dark energies, as they had surrendered to the frequency of their rulers. They could not, for all intents and purposes, align with the energies of all that is, because they had, as a result of the influence of their rulers, considered this energy to be their enemy as well. As you will see, dear friends, this was an impossible situation that was faced by all that is, the Alliance, and the higher dimensional beings. However, they did not give up, and so the plan went ahead. The messages that you receive here through this channel and through our book is our attempt at giving you the truth of what has happened and what is taking place. As you raise yourself up and out of these depravities, it will be difficult for you to fathom just how deeply wounded you are. Many will deny and revolt against us and our message, and we understand. This to us demonstrates just how deeply you have been programmed to rebel against the perfection of the energy that is all that is. We continue to work at this, and like peeling an onion, we strip away these depravities so that you begin to see the light for yourself, and your soul is freed to realign itself with your higher self and the energy of all that is, as it was meant to be. The many that have religious beliefs and practices will stand their ground, and this too is all right. We do not wish to shake your beliefs or forsake them. It is for you to come to your own conclusions about the true essence of your soul. As we have demonstrated in our previous discourses, all that is and the higher dimensional beings who are moving within your plane at this time are working with what you know as the Galactic Federation to allow for this to be a smooth transition. We face resistance at every step as the hold of these energies upon your society are deep and strong. The unrest that you experience is a result of the grip that they have on your society. Even though the ruling class of this hierarchy have been removed from your plane of existence, their puppet masters still believe in this way of life and their practices, and so they hold on to their positions and their roles for dear life. As the truth pervades, many are waking up, and we wish for you to do so as well. We ask you to review all of the material we have provided to you and ask you to meditate on these truths, and if they resonate with you, re-establish your connection to your higher self and witness the shift that will occur in your life. The energy known as all that is does not wish for you to fall on your knees and beg for mercy or offer prayers and other such things. All this being wishes for you to do is to allow for your energy to re-establish its connection to your higher energies and allow for your being to be realigned with your true soul. There is much trauma that you will encounter as a result of your slavery. We ask you to be kind to yourself and wade through these dark energies by going within. Find a quiet place to sit and reflect, meditate, play some high-frequency music that resonates in the frequency of 528 Hz or higher. Find peace and joy within your family and loved ones. Find the strength and creative spark within your own energy and grow from this space. The external world and its activities are in the throes of the dark energies receding, and so this toxic energy will try to suck you back in. Walk away from it and return to your quiet space within, and allow for this soul spark to gain strength and glow for the rest of the population to witness. We will leave you now to contemplate these truths in peace and joy. We encourage you to ask us questions in the comment section below so that we might share our knowledge with you. Blessings.